Hey everyone, welcome back to Mini Bike Mike's Garage. Well, as you can probably tell from the items I have laid out here on the table, that we're going to do a little bit of a wiring harness tutorial. And in today's video, we're going to focus on the Trail Buddy harness. Their part number is TB515. They call it the 12-volt simple main harness. If you've watched the channel at any period of time, you know I've used a ton of these harnesses, but I've come to realize that most of the video that I have shown is in the middle of other videos of installing this in a bike or wiring it in a bike. I've never done a video of just specific on the harness and how to wire it and the items that you need on the bike to wire it. So that's what we're going to do today. Now you might realize by looking at the things we have laid out that the one thing we don't have is turn signals. This wiring harness is so simple. It is not for a bike that you're going to put turn signals on. It only has wiring for a horn, a headlight, and a tail light / brake light. Now, could you add wires to do turn signals? Absolutely, and we may touch on that in a video later down the road, but for today, this is what we're going to work on. Now, this harness was designed to put in a Honda CT70, specifically like a K0 or a K1. But the harness doesn't care what bike you put it in. You can put it in anything you want. And it's also designed to go with a Lifan engine. Again, you can put a Piranha or whatever engine you want. You may just have to try and match up the wire colors. We'll kind of go over that once we break this open. But if you want to use this in a different bike, a different Honda or any bike with a Lifan engine or whatever, you may have to lengthen some wires, for example, that go to the tail light, because this, like I said, was designed for a pretty short bike in the Honda CT70. So, all right, I think first, let's go ahead and get this broke open, get it laid out, show you what we've got, what comes in their package, and then we'll kind of go over everything else that we've got here on the table. So we're just gonna, this is a brand new harness. And like I said, this comes from a company called Trail Buddy up in Zeeland, Michigan. And I'll put links in the description of how to contact them and the part number for the harness. So right off the bat, it does come with some paperwork that has, it has a schematic, and then has, actually has written, this wire goes to this type of thing. So we'll get it all out. So here it is, pretty simple. Actually, I've got it turned around backwards. It's gonna go this end. So not a lot to this. Like I said, we're not powering very many items, just a couple lights and a horn. So that's the harness. So what I've got laid out, I've got just a generic Honda CT70 K0 tail light. Probably came off of eBay or someplace like that. I've got a brake switch to activate the brake light. This is a CDI that will plug into the harness. It probably comes with your engine if you bought a brand new engine. This is a 4-pin voltage regulator. Probably will not get that with the engine. You'll need to go to Amazon or eBay or someplace and pick this up. This is maybe $7 or $8. You'll need a 12-volt coil. Some coils have 2 wires like this one, and that's how this harness is set up to plug into the 2-wire. Some coils have 1 wire. They just have this black and gold one, which means that the frame needs to be grounded to the chassis of the bike. When it has 2 wires, one of them is a ground. This is purely just a mounting bracket somewhere for you to mount it. It has no function as far as grounding. So you'll need that. I've got a Tykool 12-volt battery that I got off of Amazon. I'll put links to all of this in the description. This is a generic, it's kind of a Honda CT70 base key switch. Has the same plug as what a CT70 had. I get them off of Amazon. I want to say it's like 25 bucks or something like that. Now we're going to have to cut all this off and rewire it for this harness. You can actually buy from Trail Buddy a key switch that will plug directly into the harness with no issues, but it is only a on and off key switch. This retains the 3 position key switch, just like the original Honda CT70 had. So it's either off, run with no lights, or run with lights. And I kind of like that, to be able to run the bike and not have lights if I don't want to. Where the 2 position switch, as soon as you turn the switch on, the lights are going to be on. Okay. This is Headlight. I think I probably got that from TB Parts or somebody like that. This is a horn. This is actually a 6-volt horn, even though this is a 12-volt system. 6-volt horns work just fine, as long as you don't just lay on the horn for, you know, a half hour. It should be fine. You can also get a 12-volt horn. This came off of Amazon. I've got a high-low beam switch for the headlight, a horn button for the horn, and then I've actually got another brake switch. You know, it's the rear type switch, but it's going to simulate the front brake switch that's up on the front handlebars. So that's the items you have. The one thing you do need to make sure you've got is you have 12-volt bulbs in your lights, in both your tail light and your headlight. If you don't, some of these things come with 6-volt bulbs. You'll blow that rascal right off the bat when you fire this up and turn it on. So make sure, double check and make sure you've got 12-volt bulbs. So, all right, I think before I actually dive into the harness, let's dive into this. Let's go ahead and get this key switch set up so that it can plug into our harness and actually function. So I want to show you guys how to wire that, how it works with this harness. So the first thing I'm going to do with this key switch is get rid of all the plugs that are on it already. I should have got a better cutter that I could get closer to it, but it'll work. This will be all right. We're not going to need these, so I'm going to take and cut those off. Now, what you need to do is find 2 sets of wires that have continuity with this switch in each position. So the first thing I'm going to do is, in the off position, I need to find 2 wires that have continuity together, and that should be the green wire and the black wire. And real quickly, I'm going to go grab my multimeter. I forgot to grab that, and I'm just going to show you guys what I'm talking about if you don't know, maybe if continuity is not a term that you understand. So hopefully you can see the meter here in the video, and as I touch the 2 leads of the meter, you'll see the numbers change, and you might even hear that it makes a sound on this particular multimeter. So basically what I do when I'm touching these 2 leads together, I'm completing a circle of going out the black and then back into the red and then back into the meter. So I'm making a circle, and that's what I want to do with this key switch also. So I've stripped the green wire and the black wire. The key is in the off position. Now I should be able to take and touch each of these wires, and we should, in the off position, we should see the meter change and we should get a signal. We do. All right, so that's what we want. So that's our 2 kill wires, the green wire and the black wire. Now we need to find 2 wires that have continuity in the second position, actually the third position, second on position, so that the lights will come on. And I believe that's going to be the red one. Let's go the red wire and the solid brown. So for the second on position, you want the red wire and the solid brown wire are your 2. These other 3 wires, the yellow, the blue, and the brown with the white stripe, we're just going to cut those off. They are not used in this application at all, so we just want to get rid of these. we're going to concentrate on these 4 wires. So the next thing I've got to do is I've got a little electrical kit from Amazon that I pick up. I have got to put a 4-prong plug onto these 4 wires that will plug into the white plug here on the harness. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quickly and get this plugged in, and we'll show you what it looks like. Hopefully in the video you can see that I have added some little spade, I don't know what you call these kind of connectors. I don't know, spade's probably not the right terminology, but the male version of what goes into this style plug. And we still need to put this thing on here, but before we do that, we need to make sure we get these 4 wires in the correct orientation to match up with these wires. So in the harness, you've got 4 wires. There's a green one that is the ground wire, and it's going to match up to the green wire in the harness, or in the key switch, I'm sorry. Then you've got a black and white wire that is the kill wire that goes to the CDI. So basically, the green wire and the black and white wire are a matched pair, and when the key is in the off position, the black and white wire is able to reach ground, which then grounds out the CDI and kills the bike. So that's going to be the green wire on the switch and the black wire on the switch. And then the other 2 on the harness, it's a red wire and a solid black. The red wire is 12-volt power coming into the switch from the battery, and it doesn't go really anywhere else other than from the battery to this point right here. And then 12-volt goes into the switch through the red wire, and then in the second on position, it comes back out the switch and into the black wire, which then sends 12-volt power to any wire that is black in the harness. So a couple of these are pretty simple. We're going to match the green wire to green wire and the red wire to the red wire. The other ones are kind of mismatched. We're going to put the solid black of the switch to the black and white of the harness, and then the brown of the switch goes to the solid black in the harness. So hopefully you guys can follow that and make sense of all that. So this goes on this way, and so we've got the solid black in the top right corner, and that's going to be our solid brown in this case. So that's going to go there. Right below it goes the red one. Have that in the right orientation? No, I need to spin this wire. There's a little tab on these little brass pieces that fits in there. It's kind of a spring-loaded deal. It's probably not going to show up on video. There's a little bitty tang right here, and as you push it in, it pushes that tang down, but then after it clears a certain spot with inside this plug, it allows it to pop back up, and then that way it won't pull back out of the plug. All right, so then over here we have the green is beside the brown, so that goes like that. I did not hear it click. It didn't click. Oh, there it clicked. All right, the wire was holding it up. And so then the last spot is obviously this solid black is going to match with the black and white of the harness. I should be able to plug those two together, and now we have a key switch that is hooked to our harness, and we'll have the 2 position. So we off, run with no lights, run with lights. So let's jump to go ahead and start plugging some of these items into the harness and kind of talking about them as we go along. I'm actually going to start at the back of the harness at the tail light end, because quite honestly it's a lot simpler than the headlight, and I don't think most people struggle back here. They struggle at the front end, but let's just go ahead and get this plugged in real quick. So at the back here, obviously this long red wire goes to your positive post on your battery, and then there is a green wire that has a little cover on it that goes to the negative post of your battery. They actually give you another green wire with a eyelet that if you want to bolt that somewhere to the frame to make sure that everything is all grounded well together. There are a couple white plugs back here, and those are for the 4-pin regulator and the CDI. Quite honestly, guys, you can't really mess these up because they're different plugs and they won't plug in to each other. So they'll only go into one of those plugs. So that's pretty simple there. Then there are 3 wires out the back. You've got a solid green that is your ground. That's going to go to your ground on your tail light. All right, so you've got a solid green wire that's a ground wire. Hang on a second. I know I'm going to break this off. All right, then you've got a green and yellow, which is the brake light. And then there is a solid brown, which is the running light or the tail light. And it just so happens that this tail light has the exact same color wiring. So I just went brown to brown, green and yellow to green and yellow, and then solid green to solid green. So that is the tail light, the CDI, and the voltage regulator. I'm not quite ready to hook. I'm going to wait and hook the battery up last. Let's move up the harness. You've got 2 sets of wires here kind of in the middle that look very, very similar. One of them has a solid green wire, which is the ground, and it has a black with a gold stripe or yellow stripe. That is the coil wires. This other set has a solid black and a green with a yellow stripe, and those are the brake switch wires. So for the coil wires, just match color to color, black and gold to black and gold, and solid green to solid green. And that is your 12-volt coil is now plugged in. Your brake switch, black. If you're using an original Honda switch, it might be red and green and yellow. This one is black and green and yellow. Just put green and yellow to green and yellow, and then whatever color you have, red or black, goes to the black wire in the harness. This harness also comes with a plug for a kill button. I did not bring one of those to hook that in. We're just going to kill it with the key switch. But if you wanted to, you could plug in a kill button or kill switch and put up on the handlebars. That would plug into this little 2-wire plug that has a green and a black and white striped wire. These wires are the ones, the 6 that go to the engine with the neutral. We've got a neutral indicator wire, a ground wire. The yellow and the white are for your charging and lighting, and then the black and the black and red and the blue and white go to your stator to power the coil and all that. But those should, on a Lifan, those are pretty much plug and play. And most engines have the blue and white, black and red, and the solid green. That's the 3 wires you need to make just about any 12-volt aftermarket engine run. These are just accessories if you want to run lights and charging. Your engine may have 2 yellows, it may have a white and a yellow. You know, it just kind of depends on how you need to wire that. But for a Lifan, this is pretty much plug and play. As we move up the harness, we're to the key switch. We've already taken care of that. Now let's move up here to the headlight and to the wires. And this is where everybody, Everybody tends to have issues. Trail Buddy did a really good job at trying to just make this a very plug and play harness and try to keep it as simple as possible. So up here in the headlight, there are a whole bunch of black wires. And I've already mentioned it in this video. Anything that is solid black is going to be 12 volt hot when you have the key on and you have a battery hooked up or you have the engine running. All of the solid greens are going to be grounds. That's just pretty standard. The light green, I guess you want to call that right there, that's for your horn button. The brown right here, that's going to be for illumination to the speedometer, which I forgot earlier to mention speedometer, so I've added a speedometer to our parts that we've got here on the table. There's green and yellow, which goes to the brake switch. There is a green with a red stripe, which was the neutral indicator wire. And then this solid yellow wire is for if you want to, you have a couple options. If you want to run the headlight off of the battery, you hook the headlight to one of the solid black wires. If you want to give the battery a break and you want to run the headlight off of the stator and powered by the engine, then you run it off of the yellow wire. And that's really all that's up here. This little pigtail that sticks out a little longer, that's for the horn, and there's a couple ways you can go on that. We'll get to that here in just a second. So I guess let's just dive in and start plugging some of this stuff in. Let's start with the headlight. So this is just the standard K0, K1 high-low switch. It's got 3 wires. The brown, I think on a stock Honda one, it's actually brown and red. But the brown and red wire, that's the power in to the switch. And then the blue wire and the white wire are power out to the headlight, either high beam or low beam. So this brown wire, I'm going to go ahead, since I don't have an engine to get to crank up and power to the yellow wire, I'm going to hook everything to the black wires so that it's all run off the battery. So the brown wire of the switch, I'm going to plug it into a black wire of the harness. Then the other 2 wires are going to go to your headlight, and they're just pretty self-explanatory. Blue to blue and white to white. All right, and then the headlight needs ground, so there is a single green, solid green with a single plug we're going to plug the headlight into, and that pretty much takes care of that. The headlight does have, on the blue, it's got a double female, and that is for your high beam indicator on your speedometer. So your blue wire off of your speedometer will then plug into with the other blues of the headlight. All right. While we've got the speedometer in hand, let's just go ahead and finish it. So there, on this K0 speedometer, there's only 2 things. You've got your the high beam indicator, and then you've got the light for the illumination of the speedometer itself. And that's these 2 wires. It's got a green one, so you need to find a solid green in the harness and plug that in for ground. And then there was this solid brown wire that I pointed out earlier, gets plugged into the brown and red. And so that is your speedometer illumination. I'm trying to lay this out here so you guys can see all this. Okay. Next, let's grab this. This is our simulated brake switch. From the on the K0, that switch, and the K1, that switch is inside the front brake cable. I don't have one of those with me, so we're just going to use this. It works the same way. So there is a green and yellow wire, and so we're going to find the green and yellow wire of the harness, and that's what's going to send power back to the brake light when this is activated. Well, it needs to get power. On this particular switch, the wire is black. It could be red on your stock K0 switch or K1. So, but we're going to go black, and we're going to find a black 12-volt power. So now we've got power going into the switch, and when it's activated, it'll go back out the green and yellow wire, back out to the tail light. Okay, then we've got the horn button, and that is going to plug into this single kind of a light green color wire here. All right, so we'll plug that in. That goes to our horn button. All right, we only got a handful of wires left here. We're not going to use the yellow one, which is the stator power for the headlight. We're actually not going to use the green with the red stripe, which is a neutral indicator wire, because we don't have a neutral indicator on this speedometer. If yours does, just plug green and red to green and red. So that just leaves us with, we got an extra power wire, which would probably be used for that neutral indicator. And then we've got the horn buttons, or horn wires. Now, on this particular horn I'm using, it has a detachable harness that comes off, and this, the TB515 has spade connectors that will plug right onto this particular horn. Now, if you're using a stock CT70 horn, this connector, this wiring little harness here, you can't unplug it from the horn. It's hardwired to the horn. So you may have to put a couple different plugs, and I didn't mention it earlier, Trail Buddy in the 515 kit actually give you a little bag of different bullet ends and different connectors, so that if you needed to change something to get these wires to hook up, you do have that option. But I'm just going to, since this one has a detachable harness, I'm just going to plug the harness right into the horn. And I believe that gets me, let's see, last thing we need to do, we need to put the battery, hook the battery up. Okay, kind of got a mess back here a little bit where I kind of bunched everything up. Sorry about that. Okay, so we've got nothing is on. Take our key, put it in, turn it to the first on run position, no lights. So now the engine will run, no lights. Now I make this next click, I'm hoping we see some lights come on. We did. Awesome. And we should, okay, so the high beam, it must be on high beam. See that you can see that the light for the high beam indicator, I switch it to low, it went off, and the headlight switched. You can see that. You guys probably can't see it, but I can see the light inside the speedometer is lit up. So we've got speedometer illumination, so that's working. And by the way, again, just like I mentioned earlier, you need 12-volt bulbs here. You also need to put 12-volt bulbs here. They're a bulb I use is the number 1445 in these two holders. And these just kind of push them in, turn them counterclockwise, and they pull out, change, and then the bulb just pops out of there, and you can swap the bulbs. So, okay, so that's, our lights are working. Let's grab a brake switch right here. So if you watch the tail light, if I pull on this and activate the brake switch, we should see a brake light. We do, that's awesome. And the same thing with this brake switch up here. Awesome, that works. So we're down to the horn. So now, with the horn button itself gets grounded through the handlebars. And so because I don't have this mounted to a set of handlebars, I'm not completing the circuit with ground. So I need a little jumper wire. I'm going to go from the post here on the horn button And I'm going to find a solid green inside the harness and just kind of make a connection here. There. Okay, now I should, if I hit the horn button, if everything's right, I should get a horn. Well, there you go, guys. That's pretty much wraps it up. That's the Buddy TB515, the 12-volt simple harness. I've used a bunch of them over the years. They work great. If you're just going to wire up simple lights, no turn signals in a bike, like I said, it doesn't matter if it's a CT70, SL70, CT90, whatever. You know, you may have to lengthen the tail light wires out for a bigger bike, but it'll work in just about anything. So if you have any questions, hit me up, but hopefully that helped you guys get your bike wired up and on the road. Have a great day. Thanks.